Hey everyone, welcome back to my astrology channel. Today we're going to talk about Mars in your ninth house. To understand that, let's first talk about what is Mars. Okay, so what is Mars? Mars is, you can take Mars as a commander of the universe. So if Sun is the king and Moon is the queen, then Mars is a commander of the universe. So Mars is raw action, it's a warrior. Mars is going to go and get that action done, get that job done via the action. Okay, it doesn't think about the consequences, it just likes to get the job done. So, Mars is also courage, Mars is aggression. So, if you have Mars sitting in the first house, that person may be very aggressive. We're going to talk about more qualities of that, but I wanted you to understand what Mars is. All right, so it's a warrior, it's a commander, it's aggressive, it can get temperamental very easily. By it, the native who has this placement can get aggressive very easily, can get angered very easily. Then they don't know what they're doing with their actions when they get angry, because commander's job, the warrior's job, is basically to go out there and do the war. They don't think who is getting killed, who's getting hurt, whose emotions are at line. So that's kind of like your Mars. Okay, and now let's talk about the three different aspects of Mars. Okay, to understand how and what Mars does on the house, we want to understand Mars and then the aspects. So Mars has three different aspects. First aspect is going to be on the fourth house from where Mars sits. The second aspect is going to be on the seventh house from where Mars sits. And the third aspect is going to be on the eighth house from where Mars sits. Why does Mars have the fourth aspect? Mars, because it's a warrior, and the fourth house in the Kalpurush Kundali is of the house of the home and the mother. Your homeland, your motherland. It's a house of happiness. So, warriors are supposed to protect your homeland, your motherland. So Mars has that special aspect that no other planet has, the fourth aspect, to protect its motherland from where it's sitting. The second aspect is on the seventh house from where it's sitting. Every planet has a seventh aspect, and as I always say, it's kind of like give and take. You give and you get. So Mars by nature is a malefic. It's a natural malefic. So if you give that house malefic, you're going to get back malefic many folds. Just like I mentioned in my Jupiter videos, the seventh aspect, if you give it love, you get back love many folds. So that's kind of the seventh aspect, because it's a straight up 100% aspect on it, drishti, because it's the house is right in front of you. You can't miss it. You're going to look at it. So the next aspect is the eighth house. Why do we have the eighth aspect? Why does Mars have it? Well, in the Kalpurush Kundali, Mars rules the first and the eighth house. So Mars has a special aspect of watching over his own house. Okay, so eighth house is Scorpio, but whatever sign it's placed, it doesn't matter when Mars is aspecting it, because that's going to be the eighth aspect. No other planet has the eighth aspect. So Mars has the fourth and that eighth aspect separate from all the other planets. Jupiter has the 5, 7, 9. Mars has the 4, 7, and 8. Now the eighth aspect, what does Mars do over there? So eighth is his own house. What do you do when you look at your own house? You're going to try to kill off the enemies of that house. So for instance, let's say that eighth aspect ends up being on the fourth house. Now, the fourth house is the house of happiness, as I just mentioned. Now, Mars is going to want to kill the enemies of the happiness for that native. So that's good. It may seem not good while it's happening, but at the end of the day, that's what Mars' goal is. So now that you understood what Mars is, what are the aspects, let's go into what Mars does when it sits in your houses. Okay, so let's talk about Mars in your ninth house. What is the ninth house? Well, ninth house is the house of father, guru, teacher, your higher studies, your spirituality, your long distance travel. It's also the house of your thighs, above your knees. So ninth house represents a lot of things, especially your father. Now, when you have Mars sitting in your ninth house, what does that do? You could perhaps have an aggressive father. Your father could have a temper. Your father probably doesn't think about what his actions could do and just goes ahead and does the action. Okay. So that could be that. You could have an aggressive teacher. You could have aggressive gurus. Maybe you've not found some good gurus, as you're growing up in your life. You've always struggled to find some good teachers who could teach you the right things. Your higher studies, maybe you have issues in the sense that you're not able to find the right higher studies. Maybe you study too much. You're aggressive about studying, so you will just go ahead and do all sorts of study that's there, but the direction may not be there. Okay. Same thing with your spirituality. Okay. You may not know what that is. Your relationship with dharma, perhaps what you grew up in, you don't believe in it, or your relationship is aggressive towards it, where you want to find your own religion, or you want to find your own definition of religion, etc. All right, now let's talk about the aspects that Mars is placing when it's sitting in house 9. The first aspect is on your 12th house. What is house 12? House 12 is a house of isolation. This is where a person pretty much goes towards the end of their life. So house 1 is yourself, where you're born, and it goes all the way from 1 through 12. House 12 is a house of isolation, and that's why people sometimes refer to as hospital, jail, those kind of things. So it's a house of isolation. You could get moksha through there. It's a house of liberation as well. And it's also the house of losses, because when you go to the hospital, you go to these kind of places, you do end up spending money. It's a house of ashrams as well. Temples, religious places where you go when you're closer to the last period of your life. So it's aspecting the 12th house. In this scenario, the person may feel isolated. Okay. Mars is a little more weaker here in the 12th house, in the sense that fighting isolation. So it's trying to fight isolation there. It could perhaps make the person more spiritual. So becoming spiritual for this particular setting would help. Going and doing more meditation would help, but it could make the person feel more isolated and away from other people. It could result in hospital trips for sure. It could result in jail trips, depending on how malefic Mars is for your horoscope. If Mars is malefic, the person could end up doing deeds related to house 9, where they're not being dharmic, where they're doing unethical deeds, and that could land them up in isolation in jail. But that's again to be seen from the rest of the horoscope and what other aspects are there, associations are there, etc. But that placement could happen. But a lot of times the person just isn't able to see or seek a true guru, true teacher, and just kind of feels isolated in that quest. They may end up visiting ashrams and temples and things of that nature. Now its 7th aspect is going to be on house number 3. Like I said, what you give is what you get in this particular placement. When Mars is benefic, then the relationship, what is house number 3? House number 3 is your siblings, your younger siblings, your childhood friends, your hard work is seen from there. Your short travels are seen from there. Media, communication, those kind of things are seen from house number 7, house number 3. So when Mars is sitting in 9, placing an aspect on house number 3, if it's benefic, then house number 3 person may end up being a very, 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 very much of a hard worker and working really hard, perhaps working towards media, communication, making a name for themselves, right? Their younger siblings may help them in this quest also. And their short travels are fun and exciting, those kind of things. Because house number 3 for Mars is usually a good one to be either sitting in or aspecting. But if it's malefic now, the person could have struggled with their younger siblings. Perhaps their actions affect the younger siblings, okay? They can always try to mend that relationship with their younger siblings if it gets affected, but this is what it is, a seventh aspect. What you give is what you get, more worse almost, because it's Mars. So give yourself, if you have this placement, work hard. You could do well in media and communications. Try to mend the relationships with your younger siblings, should be fine. Respect your teachers, respect your gurus, respect your elders. Look into spirituality, perhaps. Always do focus on your higher education as well. Keep educating yourself. Those are some of the good things. Meditation, because of the house 12 aspect, definitely focus on meditation. That would help you with your isolation. Let's talk about the eighth aspect now. That is one of the more important aspects for this placement. It is on house 4. As I said, the eighth aspect is always the most struggling aspect, and that is the one that you want to fix your entire life. So in this one, it is on the house of mother. House 4 is a house of mother, and it's a house of your happiness. It's a house of your family environment, the family that you create, perhaps your spouse and your children, and whoever else is living in your family. It's your family environment at all times. It is also your real estate, the home that you live in, your real estate that you invest in, you build, etc. Your vehicles, okay, those kind of things. So when Mars is placing its eighth aspect on this house, you can most likely, depending on how malefic it is or whether it's benefic, you are going to have some struggle, okay, with your mother. You're going to have struggle with your family environment. You may not find happiness in your family environment, not the kind of happiness you want. Your real estate may suffer. That may be something you may not be able to build the best house that you want to, or a good home for yourself. Instead of a house, I would call it a home. So your home life, relationship with your mother, perhaps the mother is there, but she's absent. Perhaps her advice is not particularly suited for you. Perhaps she's judgmental. Perhaps she's temperamental. You may have a mother, but it's not the ideal mother that you in your mind may think be there. But so the remedy here is to respect your father, respect your mother, regardless of what you've got to respect them. Eventually, though, this eighth aspect will transform you. You will find, the more hard work you do in that, the more happiness you will find. I would say you could focus on house 12, focus on spirituality, focus on meditation, and if you've got this placement, do send a comment in the description and tell me how much you resonate with it. And also, we do offer consultation for your horoscope, so reach out to us if this is something you'd like. There's a description in the comments, a link. Please click on that link, and please hit subscribe and like and share the video, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the updates. Thank you so much for watching.